Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Tealye.
All righty. Are you ready? I'll do a quick introduction.
We are ready.
Uh, So this is Tealye Pinet, who's with OnPoint for College. She's here today with Money Talks to talk to us a little bit about sort of an overview of how you can pay for college and how OnPoint can help. This program is sponsored by the Central New York Cash Coalition. We're a coalition of organizations that create savings, assets, and hope for lower and moderate income families here in Central New York. We're sponsored by the United Way, and there's a whole coalition of organizations that work together to promote financial empowerment, provide free tax services, and more. Tealye, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'll hand things over to you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. OnPoint's always happy to collaborate and talk about our program, but also give some great advice to the people out in our community. So we're happy to be here. So today we were asked to talk about how to pay for college, which is a very important topic. We are going to talk about a little bit of who OnPoint is in case someone's not familiar. I know that you guys will also run our video of our executive director, Samuel Rouser, and that will also be on the loop. So I won't get too into it, but I'll just cover it briefly. And then I'll also cover just understanding the various types of financial aid that's available to you. So of course, grants, campus-based aid, scholarships, loans, FAFSA, understanding that beast. We'll get into it a little bit, and making the most of your money. So OnPoint for College, we are a local nonprofit organization. We're based in Syracuse and in Utica, but we're also in 7 other counties: in Madison, Oswego, Cayuga, just to name a few. And so we look to help anyone who's interested in obtaining post-secondary education. So OnPoint for College is our name, and college is, of course, in our name. So we say college access, college success, and career services. But it's really any kind of post-secondary education. So if anyone's interested in trades or vocational programs or apprenticeships or anything like that, we can also assist individuals that are interested in those opportunities as well. So in access, that's everything with the application process or just figuring out what you want to do. So career exploration is a big part of understanding what college you might want to go to. And then visiting the schools is also very important. So we always encourage students to go to visit the school to make sure that that is the type of environment that they want to live in for 4 or 2 years. So access, we do FAFSAs for students, applications, help with essays, help understanding the award letter. Then when you're ready to go off to school, we do an orientation for students to get a backpack, school supplies, and basically a college starter kit. And we help you to understand all the resources on campus so that you can be your best self and get off to a good start. But we also follow our students throughout the process. So we visit our students every year in the beginning of the semester, or every semester rather. We're actually in the process of doing that now, so we're a little short staffed because of that. And then we also help with career services. So, I don't want to forget to mention, so one of the biggest resources for success is helping our students to get back and forth to school, which is the biggest resource that I feel like most of our students utilize when they choose to go to school, is helping to get back and forth to school, as well as helping with basic supplies like books. I don't want to miss that. And then there's career services, where, like I talked about earlier, we can help with the beginning stages of just understanding what you want to go to school for, because you want to know what you want to do with your life as far as a career. And then we help with pre-professional experience while you're in school. We also help with career readiness workshops to help you be your best self and more employable when you graduate. And then there's the basic resumes, cover letters, and helping you find jobs, which is huge. So let's get into how do you pay for college. So paying for college can be very stressful for people, and we always tell students to not feel discouraged with the process. There is a lot, and that's why we are in existence, because we help our students with that process, or our participants with that process of understanding and getting all of the paperwork in, because there's always paperwork. They're always asking for stuff. And so when you think about financial aid, there's different forms of financial aid, or different types of financial aid, and it's really broken down in 4 different categories. So there's grants, campus-based aid, scholarships, and loans. So a grant is money that you do not have to pay back. That's going to be free for you, and if you get it, it's yours to apply for school. And so a lot of times students get confused on the FAFSA, and the FAFSA is the application that you do in order to be eligible for your Pell grant and your loans. So we'll get into that a little bit later. So there's Pell, there's TAP, there's APS, which is aid for part-time studies or students, and that one must be applied through the school. So it's kind of like TAP, but a little different. And then there's EOP and HEOP. So it's Educational Opportunity Program and Higher Educational Opportunity Program. And you must get into that in the first semester of college. Sometimes students think that they can kind of backtrack, and it doesn't work that way. It's they look at income eligibility as well as your high school transcript. So how well you did in high school. And so sometimes students can think that they're not eligible, and that's not always the case. So we always tell students just check the box and apply, because if you're eligible, it's very beneficial for you through grants that they give you, as well as the support that they give you academically, which is very important because you get a little more support as an HEOP or EOP student. And then there's SEOG, which is a federal grant that is used at the campus discretion. Is actually one of the campus-based aid as well. Any questions? I go kind of fast. I don't want to get anything lost. So we also have campus-based aid, which we talked about SEOG being one of those. SEOG is a grant that's used at the school's discretion and on a first come, first served basis, which is why it's important to get your FAFSA applications in early. We always encourage students to do it as soon as it comes out in October. This is this is an aid that not every student is gonna get, because of it being a first come, first served basis. And then there's school-specific scholarships as well. So if you do really well academically, you can get a scholarship from the school that, you know, really wants you to come. That can range anywhere from a few $1,000s to $20,000. It really depends on the school and your academics. And there could also be, if you're in sports, I have a student that got a scholarship for an equestrian scholarship to ride horses. And that was their thing, not their major, but because they were really good at it, they got a scholarship to go to school to do that. And then there's federal work study, which is what it is. You work for it, but you get it. And it's a pot of money that's put aside through your financial aid package that says that you'll get $5,000 for the year, for an example. Not everyone get $5,000, but it's just an example to help you towards you know, your needs on campus. So these are the campus-based aids. Again, every school has money that they use at their own discretions. APS is also a campus-based aid as well. So we talked about that a little bit earlier. So you want to apply for it as soon as possible, as soon as you know that you'll need it. The next is scholarships. So scholarships are separate from FAFSA applications, but a lot of times you have to do this FAFSA application in order to qualify for the scholarships. The Excelsior one is an example of that. So for Excelsior, you have to do the TAP. And in order to do the TAP, you have to do your FAFSA. So everyone just do the FAFSA. Sometimes people are a little discouraged, or they feel like their parents might make too much. Just complete the FAFSA, because you can get some financial aid in other areas. So the Excelsior scholarship, you must live in New York for the number of years that the scholarship is received. The enhanced scholarship must live in New York for the number of years that the scholarship is received as well. And those are New York state-based scholarships that also look at your the amount of credits that you complete. So you have to keep doing well and excel academically and progress in a timely fashion, because there are stipulations to that as well. And then there's the SAS scholarship, which you must live in the Syracuse City School District or SAS for attend to the Syracuse City School District or SAS for at least 3 years.
What's
Or have
what's
revenue.
SAS?
Say it
What is
again?
it? What is SAS?
Oh, Syracuse Academy of Science, which is, it's not part of the Syracuse City School District, but they're one of those high schools that's eligible for SAS now. Good question. And then there's the OnPoint SU scholarship, which is a scholarship that students get for being a part of our program. It's not as good as the HOP scholarship. And there's other scholarships sometimes that SU will give a student, so it's not in combination, but it's like if you don't get any other scholarships, then there's the OnPoint scholarship. And there's also a deadline to be eligible for that. Deadlines for everything, guys. So make sure that you're reading the deadlines. Applications are so important, but if you don't get them in on time, they don't mean anything. And then there's also private scholarships where we also help students to apply for private scholarships. Sometimes we'll get funders who will say, well, I want to give $1,000 to Latina in STEM. So sometimes there's those opportunities as well to get scholarships. And sometimes schools will give scholarships. My son received a scholarship from Salve High School, so which is where he graduated from. So sometimes there's those opportunities as well. Loans. So loans must be given back. So must be paid back in some way, shape, or fashion. So we try to steer away from that, right? Everyone wants to avoid taking out loans. And sometimes it can be a little confusing, because when you think of financial aid or the FAFSA, you think it's free money all the time, and it's not. So you have to be mindful of your direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans. In order to receive those loans, you must do a master promissory note and entrance counseling. So whenever a student does that, I'm like, okay, you have loans. Understand that these are, this is money that you're taking out for your education, and you have to pay that back once you graduate. And so that is a percentage for that. Private loans look at your credit score, and the percentage is based on the individual. So they look at the credit history, they look at if you're working, and they're a little bit harder to get to the private loans. It is possible. I've students that have had to go that route. We don't encourage it because it's usually higher interest rates, and it's just, and you have to pay them. Sometimes you have to pay them back faster. It depends on each loan is different. There's also Parent Plus loans. So if a student goes to school and they have a small gap, sometimes the parents will have to take out a loan to cover that gap. And we try to avoid that as well. But if the student's adamant about going to that school, then we will help the parents to complete the Parent Plus loan. And it's a little bit higher percentage, of course. And again, the parents' credit score and work history and all that is also looked at or considered for the Parent Plus loan. But you do get an instant notification if you got approved or not. Alternative loans, I'm sorry, I can't speak today, are like Sally Mae's, and those are other loans that you can take out. We don't usually encourage students taking out additional loans. It's just, if it's that much that it's over what your subsidized, unsubsidized loans are, then we really need to look at like what's going to be your estimated income when you graduate. Does it make sense, right? Sometimes students can think that there's a larger median salary for a career path that they might be going down, that it really may not make sense. So we always explore that and maybe look at different schools if the school is just too expensive. And then we also make sure that the students aren't in default, which is a result of failure to repay a loan according to the terms agreed in the promissory note. And sometimes we'll get students that may have started school a few years ago and paused for a while and hadn't let their loans know about their financial hardship. And so we'll help students to get out of default if that is the situation. We'll take a look at that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know we're going to have you back for more in-depth on some of these topics, but
Yes, for
you know,
sure.
there's so much fear around loans, and we know that the government just came through with some support for people who've had some difficulty there. But you guys really talk to students about what's an appropriate loan amount and like what might be a good investment versus what is just too much and too much of a
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now with the entrance counseling, it kind of does that. But sometimes students are just doing it to do it, right? So we really try to have that conversation to say, is this really worth it, right? What's your commitment to it, right? It's like you have to really be serious if you're going to be investing a lot of money towards it. And sometimes students will be like, well, I'm going to be a doctor. And it's like this dream that they're going to make a lot of money. And then they start and they do it and they end up racking up $100,000 in debt with their bachelor's alone. And then realize that they don't want to go to medical school. And so, it's like, it's a huge commitment. And so we do try to steer students away from taking out a lot of loans as always. Our plan is always to help start students off at the best foot, right? So yes, we try to avoid that and try to get them as many scholarships as possible. So connecting them to all of these resources, helping them with all the applications as part of what we do here at OnPoint. We don't pay for tuition. A lot of times people will come into our office and think that we'll pay for the tuition and they don't have to pay anything for school because I'm always going to pay for it. And it's like, no, we don't work that way. We're a nonprofit, community-based, and really just here to help the community and help them understand all the resources and help them know how to fill out all the applications. And also at the end of the day, like you talked about, understanding what's their best option. So looking over all the award letters, laying them out and saying, okay, which is the best option for you? Then give it to the student to decide what they want to do, because at the end of the day, we don't ever tell our students or sway our students to go either way. We make it make sense, we explain it all to them, and then they make the decision off of that. So it's just knowledgeable decision making. So, and I want to add that all of our pictures are our students. So these are some of our graduates that we're very proud of. So yeah, so this is financial aid. The application is open in October, and you need to reapply each year. And sometimes students don't realize that you have to do that. And you have to have your parents, if you're a dependent, dependent student, you have to have your parents' your parents' tax return for prior year. That's really all that you need. And sometimes we don't even actually need to physically see it. We can just upload it directly on the FAFSA website. So it's not as hard as people think, but it can be very intimidating. So first you fill out your FAFSA, then you'll fill out your TAP application. After submitting the FAFSA, you'll receive your EFC. And if you get a 0 EFC, then the max amount that you'll get for PAL will be $6,895. That does change from year to year, but that's what it is now. If you get a 0 EFC, you also will be estimated to get about $5,665 for TAP. If you see the asterisk, then that means that you've been selected for verification, which can also be an intimidating process because they just want to verify all of the information that you put on the FAFSA. So oftentimes ask for everyone's name that's in the household, a copy of a tax transcript, things like that, or the things that they ask for verification, but it's not a hard thing to do. Sometimes getting the tax transcript can be a little difficult, but we will help with that process as well. So we just tell students, if you get that, just come to us and we'll help you. So what's a FAFSA?
Is an EFC is an estimated family contribution, is that correct?
Yeah, so that's what, go back. So the EFC is the estimated family contribution, and that's just telling them telling us from what the information that they've gotten from the tax returns, that's what you should be able to contribute towards your education.
Great, thanks.
No problem. So a lot of times students will, you know, if you have an EFC of maybe 1,200, then you won't get the full amount of Pell or TAP, but you'll still get some. And then FAFSA, so the free application for federal student aid, like we mentioned, a lot of times this is used by many institutions also to determine their eligibility. So it's not just like for the FAFSA, for your Pell and for your direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Sometimes the school will look at that, or a lot of times the schools will look at that to determine, okay, well, what are we gonna do for the student, right? So they'll see, you know, you got a 0 EFC, our school costs $40,000. We know that you're not gonna be able to pay for the tuition with that, so we'll give you this 20. And so that's how they kind of determine like what they're gonna give a student for aid. And then again, the FAFSA is open October 1st. If you, a lot of times when students look at this, I'm sorry, I'm getting all these messages at this time. The Department of Education uses this for the Pell Award. So a lot of times students get confused with this, right? So FAFSA is the application to get you your Pell and to get you your loans. And that for that, with that information that they get, the school will also use that information to determine their stuff. It's not all the same thing. And I think that's where students get very confused with the difference between FAFSA, Pell, loans, and all of that good stuff. So the FAFSA is the application, and that just helps them determine what you'll be eligible for when it comes to the grant, the free money, and your loans, which the loans you'll get. The only time the loans are different is if it's independent or dependent. So an independent student is eligible for more loans than a dependent student is, which is important to know. So when you're completing the FAFSA, a student may be considered independent if they meet one of the following criteria. So they must be 24 years old, if they're married, a graduate or a professional student, a veteran, a member of the armed forces, an orphan, a ward of the court, an emancipated minor, or someone who is homeless or at risk for being homeless, or someone with legal dependents other than a spouse, with a legal dependent other than a spouse. So someone who has a child that's living in the world on their own. Sometimes we'll still have to provide documentations of proof to verify independence from parents, which is something that we will help students to walk through that process with them, because sometimes it's a little bit more difficult when you're kind of in a gray area. So we always encourage students to come meet with us and let us know what their circumstances are, so that we can help them through it. So who's eligible? US citizens, non-US citizens with an alien registration card, students with an arrival departure record showing a refugee, asylum granted, Cuban, Haiti, insurance. Okay, so DACA stuff, not my expertise, but we help students throughout that process, and we have resources and things that people that we reach out to if we have questions in regards to that. Sometimes get some of those issues, but for the most part, there's an alien registration, we're good.
So when in doubt, come and ask you guys. If you're not
For
sure if
sure.
you're eligible, come to OnPoint and find out if you're eligible.
Definitely, because we look into it and we'll contact our resources. We have a lawyer that we contact and ask if we have any questions, which is rare that we have to do that. I think in the 9 years I've been at OnPoint, I've had to do it twice where I'm like, I'm not sure. And I think one of them ended up getting a scholarship for the school where they were pretty much covered. But yeah, so that's that. Completing the FAFSA. So you have to create a FSA ID. You'll need your social security number. As I mentioned, you'll need your parents' tax return or your tax return from the prior year and a driver's license. So for additional items for dependent students, your parents' social security number and their federal tax returns. And for non-US citizen students, alien registration numbers are very important. And sometimes that can be hard to understand sometimes because there's the whole issue with fraud. And so a lot of times students come in and like, why do you need this information? And we don't want it for our purposes as much as we need it to be able to help walk students through the process of the application.
And if I just
So
add,
Mhm.
if somebody doesn't have their taxes done yet, Peace has a year-round free tax service for low and moderate income families. And so if somebody says, oh, we don't have our taxes done, call Peace. They have a free tax program. We have one as well during tax season, but Peace is open all year round.
Right.
So if somebody needs that service.
Yes, that's great to add that. We've also helped our students to get connected with resources to complete their tax returns sometimes. They don't anticipate that they'll need to do that. And we'll help them with that. And if they're married students, they'll need both spouses' information. So student aid report, once the FAFSA is all completed, for the FAFSA, students can put up to 10 schools, which is great. But the TAP school is what gets transferred over for the TAP application. So once that's done and the FAFSA is processed, you'll be able to review your student aid report, which we call the STAR, which has your family contribution, estimated family contribution on there, your application status, your summary of your FAFSA application. All your information will be on there. Your summary for the loans you'll be eligible for, all of that stuff will be on there, okay? And so the TAP is the Tuition Assistance Program for New York State. Once you complete the FAFSA, there's a link at the end when you see your SAR to apply for the TAP application. Sometimes students don't do it directly after because it can be a little hard to see it sometimes. Everything looks the same by the end of it. It's like, oh, I'm done. But you have to click that link in order to get it done the same day. So if you want to do your TAP right after your FAFSA, you have to make sure you click that link. That's the only way that it'll communicate with each other and they'll process your application. If not, you'll have to wait a few days and come back and then we'll do your TAP application then. This again also opens up October 1st, and this is a grant that does not need to be paid back. TAP is one of the grants that's under the New York State aid. So they also have other scholarships and awards that can be administered through New York State, like Excelsior and the Haynes. So accessing the TAP application, we can help you with all of this. I'm going to kind of skim through this stuff because we're running low on time. I have to jump onto another presentation in 3 minutes. Again, you have to be a U.S. citizen or a legal non-citizen, but you also have to live in New York State for at least 12 months, and you must have graduated from a high school in the U.S. and or have earned your high school equivalency diploma or task, must be enrolled as a full-time student, and must be attending a college or university in New York State. Completing the TAP application will require a US user ID and a PIN that you have to remember. You will need your tax information or income information, as well as your parents if you are a dependent student. If the, sorry, I was trying to hold that. If the application is mailed, it does take a lot longer. So for the TAP application, you have to have, if you're a dependent student, your parents' ID to be able to sign for it at the end. So, which is very important because if you have to mail it out, it will take a lot longer. As I mentioned earlier, the top school on your FAFSA is the school that gets transferred over to TAP. Unlike the FAFSA, they do not let you put 10 schools on here. So you have to remember that if you put OCC as your top school and you decide to go to Herkimer, that you've changed that, at least the 2 months before you go to Herkimer. If that makes sense. So check it regularly for any communication, because if you've been selected for verification, they'll also notify you for the documents that they're looking for from you. And make the most of your money. If you have your own health insurance, make sure that you waive your school's health insurance. If you're at a 4-year school, if you're living on campus, they will require you to have that. And it could be a couple $1,000s. So you want to make sure that if you have your own insurance, that you let them know that you have that. If you're attending a community college outside of your county, you must do a certificate of residency every year. Otherwise, you'll get charged double the tuition. So make sure that you complete that with your county to let them know that you'll be going to school at a different community college, and use your financial aid refund check to place your housing deposit for the next year and use it to reduce next semester's loans, reduce your meal plan if you're a sophomore, if you aren't using all of your meals. And buy used books or reserved books at the library to try to help with the cost of those little things in school that cost a lot, right? And that's pretty much it. Any questions? Sorry, I can't.
Tealye, this was terrific. Thank you so much. I know you're on a tight schedule. We
Yeah.
are going to have OnPoint back. We're going to have someone come and talk to us about how to fill out the FAFSA. I know next week, Tom Delwa was going to talk a little bit about the public service loan forgiveness program. And the FAFSA one is on October 26th. And we'll continue to bring programs, Money Talks topics around paying for college. Tealye, thank you so much for being here.
No
I'm gonna
problem.
log off, and then Manila, we're going to play the OnPoint video just to wrap up this session for everybody. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You guys have a
Thank
good
you
day.
for making time for us.
Have a
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. So Manila, give me 2 seconds here. And I just need to. Can you see a YouTube video?
Yes.
Who OnPoint for College is, what we consider to be as a college access program. And what we do is we help students with access to college, helping them to get in, success in college, helping them to stay in, and then career services. It allows them to find a career, a future, a purpose that they can serve in their community going forward. And OnPoint for College helps students every step of the way. And while our name is OnPoint for College, we are really looking at helping students with post-secondary opportunities. So if they're interested in a trade, if they want to be a truck driver, whatever your interest is for building a future for you and your family, OnPoint wants to be there to help you through that.
Currently, I am a nurse practitioner and I work in the inner city of Syracuse. OnPoint has made my life better by providing me with opportunity. I first came in contact with the staff of OnPoint by going on a college tour, and it allowed me to see what college life was like. Once I completed high school, OnPoint made sure that I had the time to get into college. And once I actually started each semester, OnPoint followed up with me.
Just to give you an example, we had a young man at the beginning of the semester come to us because he had tried to cash 2 checks at the bank and he couldn't cash them because he only had ID and he needed a birth certificate. He didn't have the $30 for a birth certificate. So him and his mom came to OnPoint to say, he's not going to be able to go to college. He's not going to be able to cash his scholarship checks because we don't have the $30. So OnPoint gave him $30, and that changed his whole trajectory, his whole idea about his future and where he could go and what he could do.
OnPoint was really there for me my junior year of college. Unexpectedly, my father passed away and I had to push through the nursing program. And in doing so, I had to pay for textbooks that were $500, $600. It was already a challenge to push through the program, and then financially, that was the challenge in itself. So I called Nina, who was a member of the OnPoint staff, and let her know that I needed textbooks. And that same weekend, she came up and she bought all the books I needed.
And investing in OnPoint students is an investment in your city, in your town, in your village, in your county, in your state, in your country, because our students go all over the country going to college. The majority of them do come back to New York State, but now they become individuals in your community who have purpose, who have direction, who are contributors.
I chose that clinic because this is my community. There are not too many individuals who look like me, who work in healthcare, let alone hold a position as a primary care provider. So OnPoint has reassured me that I belong in my community. and that they are willing to support me throughout the way.
We're educating poor people in some cases, underprivileged people in some cases. Those who are financially challenged and academically challenged are no longer falling into those spots. And so investing in OnPoint is an investment in the future of where we are and who we are. It gives to America, it gives to New York State, it gives to Onondaga County, it gives to Syracuse.
So thanks everybody for coming today. And we will be back next week talking about the student loan forgiveness program. Thanks so much.